What were you taught in school that you later learned was completely untrue? 1. Future employers will see how many detentions you have had during school. 2. There are 52 states in the USA. This was a mistake in a textbook, so this was taught to a whole generation of Austrians, probably also Germans. 3. In a geography class, a student asked why the north of Ireland was part of the UK. The professor replied, because Ireland gave it to the British. Coming from a very patriotic Irish family, this was a shock to say the least. 4. High school teachers told me how professors in college university don't help you with anything, and you're completely on your own. After explaining difficulty I had with one of my papers to my professor, he gave me the names of about 5 to 6 authors he knows right on the subject and essentially gave me half my research. Another time, a professor actually loaned me a copy of a book the library was out of, so I could photocopy a chapter 1 needed for my final paper. Most of my professors would answer questions over email, or after class too. Professors help more than high school teachers in most cases.
This video is brought to you by Fiverr, the biggest, most affordable, and overall the best freelance website there is. It's a place where you can hire anyone from writers to designers and everyone in between for as little as $5. It's absolutely the best place to save time and money for your projects. But if you want to take your business a step further, we would highly recommend Fiverr Pro, a place where you can work with verified, hand-vetted, exceptionally talented professionals that have, with their work for companies like Google or Apple, proven to be the best in their category. Link in the description below.
That everyone believed the world was flat up until Columbus proved them wrong. Additionally, that Columbus went to his grave not knowing that he hadn't landed in the West Indies. If I recall correctly, there is a diary entry written by him acknowledging that what he had landed in was a new continent. You can't take a bigger number away from a smaller number. OMG yes. I just remembered, when we learned about negative numbers, I was so goddamn pissed off and upset. Nowadays, I tutor young kids, and when this question comes up, and I will take the time to try and explain it in a very simple way that won't cloud or confuse them. One time though, a kid got excited about what he learned, and showed it to a friend, and came back to me next week, and said his teacher said I was wrong, and that it's impossible to subtract big number from a small one. Come on. Blood is blue when it is inside your body. When I was in 6th grade, the smartest kid in the class told us this. This kid was legit smart in math, and was many years ahead of us. I disagreed. Everyone agreed with smart guy, even the teacher. I asked how come when doctors draw blood, it's red. He said because there is oxygen in the needle and that turns the blood red. Fair enough. Then I asked then how would anyone know it was blue? He said something about vacuums. At that point, the class lost focus. I lost. He won. He is wrong though. Vindicated. First year in college. The year was 2000. My intro to Can't See professor looked at me with two heads when I asked him if the exams were open book. His response, after the shocked pause, was something along the lines of, do you think you'll have access to the book when you go into the real world? It was my time to mirror his look of shock as I had just completed my 2nd year of co-op employment through my trade school, where I was employed as a DB admin and web developer, and had not only books to reference, but also W3 school, com bookmarked an IE6. Got a slightly different reply in a chemistry test which possibly might make a difference. Many things in your later life you'll be able to look up. Most of your work you'll double check. However, if the storage is on fire you really need to know by heart and right now whether it's a good idea to flood the area with water. Some things you need to learn. I can accept that some tests need to be without sources. That the ancient Romans has places called vomitoriums, where they would go and gorge themselves on food, and then vomit to make room for more. Gross, right? Kind of like that one scene in Catching Fire. Vomitoriums were actually a sort of hallway designed for spectators to exit the Colosseum and other arenas as efficiently as possible. Cracking your knuckles will give you arthritis. I was doing it regardless of that myth. It's not like I didn't believe it, but sometimes you just have to crack your damn knuckles because your hand has a cramp or something. Very relieved to find out it was a myth. There are different sections of the tongue for salty, sweet, sour, and bitter taste buds. I remember testing this myself once. I took some piece of candy and stuck it on the sweet zone, then on some other zone, and thought it tasted exactly the same. Even as a kid I wasn't sure about the legitimacy of that claim. I knew it at the time, but my science teacher in 8th grade taught that the Big Bang Theory was the idea that the moon was formed by a collision between Earth and a Mars-sized asteroid. I told her this was not the case, and her excuse was that it was simplified so that everyone could understand it better. Edit. To be clear, I know that is how the moon was formed, but the teacher was trying to say this was the Big Bang, like the beginning of the universe, even wording it as such. Edit 2. Yes, the moon and the modern Earth were formed by a massive impact between Proto-Earth and another object called Theia. This is, however, not the Big Bang Theory, and was not the beginning of the universe. Our gym teacher told us your body temperature increases by 40 degrees when you run. When we pointed out you go to the hospital a fever over 103, she told us it was different, and to stop acting smug. As a teacher, I have a few rules for myself to avoid becoming one of these teachers. 1. Always immediately admit you are wrong about something when you are. It's important for kids to know you are fallible, like everyone else on the planet, and that it's okay to be wrong about stuff every once in a while. 2. Use discussion paired with internet searches to try to find what the correct answer actually is. I teach 2nd grade, so we don't exactly have to go to Google Scholar, but we definitely go over the importance of checking over multiple sources and not believing everything we read on the internet. 3. Teach kids that it's okay not to know something or have a misconception about something. The pursuit of truth is infinitely more important than knowing something outright. Although it's not embedded in our curriculum, I take time every day to explicitly teach critical thinking skills. I might be a bit late to this thread, but back in 7th grade 6 ed, my female teacher and mother of 3 told us that girls cannot have an orgasm. Looking back, I honestly feel bad for the woman. How can you go through life and have 3 children of your own without ever knowing that you could have an orgasm? That slaves were paid, just not very much, and they were given a choice between a penny and a dime, but chose the penny because it was bigger. As if that was somehow less racist. All of chemistry, about 3 times. Electrons are little balls that circle around the nucleus. Just kidding. Electrons move in these little clouds around a nucleus. Just kidding. Electrons move in these different hybrid clouds. Just kidding. Electrons are clouds. Just kidding. Frick you. Also, light only moves in straight lines, except when it doesn't. In kindergarten, the teacher's aide told us that north is always forwards, no matter which direction you are facing. During recess, I figured out which way north really was and told her. Her response was, only if you are facing that way. Edit. Her first language is English. I think she thought that we were unable to understand north/south/east/west, and she got really mad at me when I proved her wrong. Until she was eventually fired a few years later. She tried to punish me with anything possible. For example, when I talked during lunch, she moved me to a different table. That you have to round up all the numbers after the decimal point. Example 1. 07883666272, round the 0 to a 1, 7 to 8, 8 to 9, etc. Because teachers convinced us you couldn't begin a sentence with because, I believed it true. And then they told you not to start a sentence with a conjunction, and that hell would make special room for you should you decide a preposition would be a good word to end on. I had a middle school teacher who told us that Buddhists have to pray to Buddha 3 times a day. Took me till high school before I realized he was probably thinking about Muslims. Edit. Yes, I know Jews pray 3 times and Muslims pray 5 times a day. The point being, the dude was pretty thoroughly wrong. North is up, south is down, east is to your left, and west is to your right. My world cultures teacher wasn't the best. In 7th grade health class we were learning about cancer. My teacher explained to the class that cancer can only be located on/in major organs. A few seconds after he said that, I raised my hand and said my grandpa had surgery to get cancer in his knee removed. A knee isn't a major organ, is it? And this teacher thought for a minute and realized he was completely wrong and just responded with saying, I'm not sure, let's move on. My 7th grade health teacher: black people can't swim. Their bones are much denser than ours. I've seen black kids jump into the pool, they just sink like rocks. Imagine my surprise upon moving away from Union, Indiana. In Of Mice and Men, Curly wore a leather glove filled with Vaseline. Our teacher told us it was so he could beat his wife with a softer hand. She was too embarrassed to tell us it was for intercourse. That there wasn't any air combat during WW1 because the planes were only used for scouting. What about Red Baron? Didn't a lot of planes back then essentially try to kill each other with hand-held pistols fired from the Sikh pit? Men and women have a different number of ribs. Also some stuff about the Antichrist, but I didn't believe that. While silly Americans spent millions building a zero-gravity pen that could write in space, the Russians used pencils. Actually, NASA programs previously used pencils, but because of the substantial dangers that broken pencil tips and graphite dust pose to electronics in zero gravity, the flammable nature of wood present in pencils, and the inadequate quality documentation produced by non-permanent or smeared record keeping, a better solution was needed. Russian cosmonauts used pencils and greased pencils on plastic slates until also adopting a space pen in 1969 with a purchase of 100 units for use on all future missions. NASA never approached Paul Fisher, the inventor, to develop a pen, nor did Fisher receive any government funding for the pen's development. Fisher invented it independently and then, in 1965, asked NASA to try it. After extensive testing, NASA decided to use the pens in future Apollo missions. Best comment of the day: all of my teachers but one, who was one of, if not the best teacher I ever had, told me that Wikipedia was a garbage resource because anyone can edit Wikipedia. I used Wikipedia for most of my projects and just put all of Wikipedia's sources as my sources. 99% of the time I got perfect A's on those essays, and I was one of the highest grades in class. Last year, the cool teacher told me that the reason teachers didn't want me to use Wikipedia was not because it was always wrong, but because it was damn near always right. His class was the only one I have never used Wikipedia in, because he actually tried to teach the class instead of relying on copy-pasted 36-page long Word documents they found on a hard drive in a dumpster.